I'm back again because it was kind of fun to read chapter 4 for you. Um, Chapter 5 is one of my favorites, but it's going to be really scary and kind of dark. And if you don't like horror, you don't want to watch this. So that's your warning. It's Saturday, so I'm a little nerdy today. I got my little toothless shirt on here. Don't let that trick you. I'm going to read something totally terrible and horrible, and yeah, but stick around if you like horror, because the monster's going to attack now. So, shall we? He couldn't breathe. Something heavy pressed on his chest. You could hear raspy breathing. He cringed and cracked open an eye. He'd slid under the blankets again, and he couldn't see through them. Something was on top of him, though. He fought the urge to freeze and hold his breath. He didn't want whatever it was to know that he was awake. Where was Tech's ear? The blankets felt wet. There was a dead weight in the bed next to him, too. The smell in the air was familiar, but he couldn't place it. Something from the time he didn't remember because of the drugs. That meant it was bad. Very bad. Wake up, pretty. I want to feed on your fear. The raspy, screechy quality of the voice and the way it hissed the words did make Brom catch his breath. A Caruth? Was it the one he'd seen earlier? A million thoughts raced through his head. How had it gotten in here? No, that wasn't important. How would he get away alive? That was the important thought. I'm going to feast on your fear. Then I'm going to use your body, pretty one. Oh, I'll use it so hard. The creature on top of him ground against him, making Brom cringe. Then I'll eat you slowly like I did your guardian. Oh, he was tasty, but you'll be better. I'll eat your magic first. Pretty one with pretty magic. Brom tried to slide a hand unnoticed to the pendant around his neck to call Dejik, but he failed. Razor claws gripped the edge of the blankets and yanked them down. He found himself face to face with the skull-like face of the Caruth. Hundreds of razor teeth revealed by the delighted smirk that pinched what little skin was left on the creature's lips. Red eyes narrowed at him, and black acidic ooze seeped down from them, melting trails down the creature's cheeks. Hello, pretty. Give me a kiss. The Caruth laughed and wiggled his long serpent's tongue at him, trying to lick Brom's cheek. Desperate, Brom shot the cold pool of magic deep within and focused it. That disgusting rotted tongue hit the frozen air between them with a loud slap. The Caruth pulled back in shock, narrowing his eyes and poking at the solidified air with a claw. What is this? Brom glared at him, then lurched forward as hard as he could, shattering the frozen air. It never hurt him to break it, but it flew like deadly shards into the Caruth's face. The demon let out a terrible screech and flew backwards. Brom didn't waste any time watching it claw its face. He scrambled out of bed. He was in such a hurry to get away, he got tangled in the sheets and tripped. The sheets were soaked with blood. It got all over his hands as he freed himself. Taxier's blood. The thought froze him for just a moment. He stared at it. Then an angry hiss reminded him that the Caruth was still there. He pushed himself back up and bolted into Dejik's room just in time to turn and slam the door between the rooms and the Caruth's ugly face. He locked it before the demon could fumble it open and then backed away from it. The Caruth screamed in fury and started throwing itself against the door. The wood cracked under the assault. The door wouldn't hold long. Brom turned away, running further into the room, looking for a hiding spot. He wanted to dive under the bed and pull the blankets around it like he used to when Dejik had first rescued him. He knew now that wasn't a safe place, though. The blankets wouldn't save him from this threat. He threw open the door to Dejik's heavy wooden wardrobe and climbed inside. He barely got the wooden door shut behind him when he heard the other door shatter, and the Caruth enter with a triumphant howl. He curled back away from the door and scooted back into the back of the wardrobe as well as he could without making too much noise. It was dark and musty, and he was far too large to fit comfortably in there, even folded up as much as he could manage. He felt around, trying to find something useful. There were all sorts of things in here. Robes and few clothing items that Dejik shouldn't have. Shoes and boots, boxes of no longer used jewelry and costumes. His hand rested on the robe of Dejik's, and the magic in it sent a jolt through his hand. He yanked it back like it had burned him. Good thing he couldn't make noise to betray himself. The doors didn't shut all the way, and they left a crack. He watched the monster stalk around the room, sniffing, listening. He couldn't tear his gaze off the monster as it came closer, and he caught his breath. "Come out, pretty," the Caruth cooled. "I can be pretty, too." The Caruth twitched and jerked, and his appearance changed as Brom watched. Within moments, the monster was gone to his sight, the glamour spell making the creature look more like a lovely man. Wings and tail, the only thing giving him away as a Caruth. Much more like Deejik in his Caruth form. Those terrible red eyes turned to look at the wardrobe. Brom cringed and prayed the thing hadn't seen him. "Come on, we'll just have a little bit of fun. You'll enjoy it, I promise." The Caruth started toward the wardrobe, but was distracted by something on the floor on the way. "What is this?" Brom could hear the scratching of claws on the floor as it picked something up. Then he clutched at his throat. He'd lost a pendant in his haste, and now the creature had it. As soon as the Caruth touched the stone, it turned black and smoke bled from it. The creature hissed and dropped it. The smoke formed a doorway, and the Caruth sniffed and leaned closer out of curiosity. The strangled, startled noise he made when the powerful hand wrapped around his throat was drowned out by the loud, demonic growl that came from the portal. Deejik stepped into the room and threw the Caruth across the room and into the furthest wall hard enough it made a dent in the wall. Brom shifted in his hiding place to watch Deejik through the crack in the door. He bumped into something, and that made a horrible loud crash, and both Deejik and the other Caruth stared at the wardrobe for a moment. The Caruth laughed and dashed for the wardrobe in what could only be glee, scrabbling on all fours for more speed. Deejik moved at the same time, though, and intercepted the demon by leaping on top of it and knocking it to the ground. The demonic growls and enraged roars that followed terrified Brom, and he had to look away. He cowered in the corner, covering his ears. Then suddenly there was a terrible shriek filled with terror and pain. Deejik hit the wardrobe hard enough it rocked, and the doors nearly splintered under the force. Brom looked through the crack just in time to see Deejik slide down to the floor, stunned. The Caruth fled out of sight, and he could hear it run through his room and out the balcony. Deejik groaned a bit and got up slowly. He didn't follow the Caruth. Instead, he opened the battered door of the wardrobe. "Brom?" Brom looked at him from where he was trying to huddle behind a stack of boxes. Deejik was filthy, covered in grime and blood. His bronze skin was covered in bruises already, and he had several deep scratches that were oozing blood. "Come here, boy," Deejik said, holding out his hand. Brom let Deejik drag him out of the wardrobe, then threw his arms around Deejik, clinging to him. "Are you hurt?" Deejik asked. When Brom shook his head, Deejik pushed him away. Deejik grabbed his gem bag and another pack, then hastily threw things into it. Then he grabbed Brom's arm and started to drag him to Brom's room. "We have to get your gem bag," and Brom balked at the door, then pointed at the bed and its blood-stained sheets. Deejik stopped in his tracks and stared. The look of pained agony and rage that crossed his handsome features made him look much more Caruth than normal. "Oh, Taxir, I am sorry, old friend," Deejik murmured. Then he shook his head and walked inside to cover Taxir up. "Get your things, Brom. Just pretend he's not there." Brom scrambled into the room and grabbed a bag. He shoved his pen and paper, his wooden toys, his favorite jewelry, his bottomless gem bag they all kept their fortunes in, and his favorite books into the bag. Then he heard a snarling near his door again and decided he could live with what he had and bolted over to Deejik. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching.